Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, inside the Now Morning Show. We continue to talk about the budget, what was read on Monday and how people feel about it. The impressions that were lasting and not so lasting for some people, depends on who you ask. So we continue the conversation this morning. This time we get into the creative sector, and we also talk a bit about tertiary education. I want to welcome the president of the UE Guild of Undergraduates, Kobe Sandy. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
As well as PhD candidate, lecturer in cultural studies at the University of the West Indies, Sean Samad. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, gentlemen, where shall we start next? You want to start with the tertiary education?
Well, you know, you're hot right now. I mean, education is hot right now, and probably not necessarily tertiary education, but definitely a lot going on around education. We had a blackout yesterday with the teachers. I don't know if it translated into tertiary education. No, I doubt very much. Yeah. But, you know, when you see, before we even get into tertiary education, what's happening with education, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts is that, of course, the budget certainly gave education the highest pie, and that is a trend for the past decade or so. And what I will think, though, is that we will give more support towards tertiary students. Of course, we know that last year GATE was cut. We only knew GATE was cut through the Standard Finance Committee, so I will be looking forward when the line items reach and we will see the numbers dissected. But of course, given that GATE has now cut and so on, we must put cushions in place for tertiary level students. So I hope that this big pie will have a good pie for us as tertiary level students.
But you know, I supported the cut to GATE in the sense that it still allows those who are on the breadline or even below the breadline to still access GATE. Because what was happening to GATE, if we're realistic, is there were some people who utilized it to get 2, 3, 4 degrees. Okay, no problem, because they actually made use of it. There were people who were degree hopping and just never finished anything. But every year, the government would put out and pay for that. So I'm happy to see that those people are eliminated, and they should not be upset, because they should have made use of it. We take so much for granted in this country. As a Jamaican, I can tell you that, because there's no GATE over there. If you want to go to UE, you have to pay for it. Point blank. I had to pay for my tertiary education. There's no subsidy, darling. So then what more do you think the government can do for tertiary education in terms of the finances?
So we're looking at developing the country, looking at trying to, of course, expand the human resources of the country. And that's what GATE is supposed to do.
No. That's what you're supposed to do, because everybody else do it who ain't getting GATE.
Well, right. But GATE is there to be the stimulus, of course, for it. What I think should be done, of course, going forward is that the government must look at what areas or sections they would like to see develop the most within the country. So let's say we now had a talk on agriculture. We have a plethora of agricultural students, let's say, who want to go in postgrad to, of course, go into agricultural technology. Why don't you put that, you incentivize that field to make it lucrative, and of course have young people to go in there and get the training needed, and of course, not just the training, but come back and assimilated into the workforce to contribute.
And that's the problem. That's where the challenge actually lies.
That's the problem
because I know lots of people who've gotten lots of grants from the government to go and study particular things because they said that it was needed and the service was needed. By the time they finish studying and they try to reintegrate into the system, there are no jobs available.
There's nothing. And that is what I'm thinking, that this big pie in the budget for education should do, assimilating those GATE-funded students, us as students, into the workplace so we can contribute and make use of what the investment is about.
How do you feel about if the government says anybody who has access to GATE has to work for 5 years for the government to repay, or 4 years?
How do I feel about it? Well, of course, once it's available, once you make it available for us, I think students would be able. We have a lot of students who graduated and nothing. They are home doing anything, and that is, of course, disheartening. So if you provide the opportunities, I think we will certainly take advantage of them.
Yeah, I think that's something that if I was government, I would do. I will pay for your education, you know. But when you're done, I'm taking back my 4 years. You won't give me the money, but you'll give me a service.
No, but it does exist. It does exist. Right? So the government gives scholarships to people, and part of the scholarship requirement is that you have to come back and work for the government for X amount of time.
Gate is not considered a scholarship, you know.
I'm saying the challenge that they encounter with that situation is that oftentimes people just, when they get to wherever they go on to do their studies, they stay there. They get jobs there, and they say, well, I go pay back the government or not, or they just escape. And that's a challenge that the government has been facing and has been going through, which I don't know how they're going to resolve it.
But they have to resolve it, because if it's me, I want back my money, you know. You know how it is to get somebody call them a couple 100,000 in this time and I get back nothing.
Not all.
So they are losing out of the investment.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah? But Sean, we're not getting the chance to contribute.
I wanna bring Sean into the conversation. We saw, now that the Ministry of Culture and the Arts is with the Ministry of Tourism. They got a bit of a longer time on the podium this time because it's together. But how did you feel about what was presented?
Personally, I think what was presented, I personally think that the connection of culture and the arts with tourism is not necessarily the best connection.
Oh, tell me why.
Because what it does is it commodifies culture and the arts and turns it into a product solely for the purpose of tourism. And we understand in this particular space, this part of the world where culture was not necessarily elevated or deemed low, our culture, as low culture versus European culture as high culture, that we're still in the process of investing and putting the necessary things in place to ensure that culture develops the way it should.
You know what? I disagree with you.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. Sure. I think the one thing that Trinis are most proud of and that is known all over the world is Trini culture. I mean, people come here for doubles and they don't even know what doubles is. You know what I mean? People gravitate towards the food, they gravitate towards the accent, they gravitate towards the carnival, you know, they gravitate towards the music, the soca music. That's your culture.
Correct.
You know, and I don't
That's
know.
A part of it, exactly.
Well, yes, of course, you know, we have the film and the, my bad. But we know we have the entire creative sector. But I'm saying that at least these things that I've just named out are things to me that are known across the world. But I think where it's not known is in the Caribbean. Kid you not.
Exactly. And some of the things that you named, I consider to be the smoke and not the fire.
That's why I said it's a part of.
Exactly.
Lord have mercy. That is the smoke you say. So what is the fire?
The fire really are the people who devote themselves to the creative sector and who have chosen, to their own detriment sometimes, to make the creative sector their life. You know, to devote their time, their everyday time to creating creative products.
But Sean, I want to challenge what you said earlier in terms of commodifying the culture, right? Because how do we generate income from it? If you're saying that, you know, these people who devoted their life to it and it's to their own detriment, how does it benefit the country to invest in it?
Right. Now, when I was talking about pairing it with the Ministry of Tourism, that's what I was not necessarily in favor of, because from a governmental perspective, what that does is, in the minds of our administrators and our government, commodify it. Right. So it's not that it shouldn't be commodified and it shouldn't be sold, because it is a product. And it has to be sold. But when you pair it with that ministry, in the minds of the people of the civil service, they are going to then start to think that culture only exists for the purpose of selling it to foreigners, especially, which to me is problematic. And Natalie raised the point earlier about the fact that our culture is known more outside than inside. The IDB did a document in 2013 called The Orange Economy, talking about the creative sectors. And one of the 7 points that they listed is the fact that integration in this region, meaning Latin America and the Caribbean, is terrible. 64% of our creative products are geared to exporting to the northern market, and only 3% within the Caribbean and Latin America. And
I'm not surprised, because a lot of what I learned about Trinidad and Tobago, I learned since I got here.
Right.
Like, I kid you not, I did not know anybody outside of Baron Lee and the Dragonaires. I didn't even know Marshall Montano.
Right.
And Trinidad and Tobago to Jamaica, it's a 2 to 2.5 hours flight.
Right.
And that surprised me, that I didn't know anything about the culture here. Why? And now that we have the carnival in Jamaica, So you'll find that there's more of a niche market in terms of the music.
Right,
so,
the festival,
you know, the young hotties will probably know the soca. But like for me, who grew up with my grandmother, I thought Baron and the Dragonaires were they're Jamaican, right?
Yes.
Oh, wait, okay, that's yeah, because I literally, and I was like, I don't know any, I didn't know any Trini.
And Natalie, your example is an English-speaking Caribbean country to another English-speaking Caribbean country. Imagine how that disparity grows when we start to move into the other language groups. You know, when we start to move into the Spanish-speaking or the French-speaking or even Brazil, which is a gigantic market that we are yet to even try to tap into. It's horrible.
What do you think prevents that, though? Is the fact that we have such a huge opportunity within the Caribbean and the Latin markets, but we don't try to exploit it?
Well, again, it goes back to government policy. And so if the government...
Can't be all the food products in Jamaica. Can't be.
But as,
no, I'm speaking specifically about the creative sector.
All the food products in Jamaica.
Listen to the point. Let us make the point.
Listen to my point. If the food can get there, the clothes, the film, the music, the music gets there.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Listen, if you walk into a Jamaican supermarket now, there are products in Jamaica that we literally thought are Jamaican. Just because you never stopped to read it, but to see that it comes from Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
But I would like to hear Sean's point.
Yes.
Those inanimate objects that you speak about, which are, you know, food and clothes and stuff, are a lot easier to manipulate and transport. When we come to cultural products and the creative sector, you're dealing with emotions. You're dealing with concepts and ideas and what people believe about themselves, and most intellectual property. And most importantly, one of the biggest issues is language. And of course, where do people learn language if they don't have opportunities themselves to do it? It's through the education system. And so that kind of the government policy regarding exposing people to language. For example, my colleague here from UWI just passed a policy to make language mandatory for every student going through UWI. But the policy says that the mandatory thing is they must do one course. What can you learn in one course?
No, actually it's the same in Jamaica. I had to do Spanish for the first year.
Right.
Yeah, I think it was mandatory that once you enter UWI...
Can you go to a Spanish country now and
interact? The thing is that I think that if I had stuck to it, I would have, because I did it, and then, you know me, I got one teacher who I couldn't understand, and I just said, and I just went to a different course.
That begs the question for me, like, you know, how much does the policy play on, or how much of it is personal responsibility? So yes, the policy is in place and say, yes, we are making sure that you start this. But what you do with it after that is up to you.
Exactly, and I believe so, because I continued, because once I got the first year, I was very interested in Spanish, so I went to the second year, you know, but I got a teacher who I couldn't understand, because accents differ, you know, and I was like, oh my God, I can't understand him.
So how important is that policy then?
It's a combination of policy and marketing/promotion, and I've had
personal responsibility?
Well, personal responsibility, the reason why I would say personal responsibility is number 3 on the list is because when it comes to language and culture, it's really about selling it. It's really about, if you have not grown up speaking a language and you're an English speaker, which means that you think that the world should speak English, what is your motivation to learn another language if it isn't communicated to you and sold to you in a way, right?
So you need to really market it, honestly.
I was the, I don't do it anymore, but I was teaching Brazilian culture in the university's Brazilian Studies program, for example, and the university put $0 behind marketing the program. If we understood that Brazil is a huge market, that if people had a clue about Portuguese and the culture, could then turn that knowledge into opportunities for their craft, then put a little bit of money behind explaining to people how that works. Especially if your primary and secondary school system does not talk about Brazil at all. When they get to the tertiary system, they need some information.
Your primary and secondary school systems don't talk about a lot of things.
Exactly.
Because the curriculum, this big pie in the budget, I expect that you will have curriculum development, this thing that they're talking about.
Well, you know what, let's be fair to the government, because I remember it probably was about 4, maybe even 5 years ago, maybe when the government even got its first term, somewhere in that first term, the Prime Minister's on record talking about changing the curriculum, and some changes have been made to the primary school curriculum. And I remember them even talking about tailor-making courses to the needs of the society. I don't know if that has been executed, and I think that is probably where...
consultation regarding the education sector, I would like to see well, probably minister's contribution when the debate starts. What is the update with that? Because of course we have money into the education sector.
You see, this is where you and I are going to fall out, you know. This is where you and I are going to fall out, because the minister was right here on this program, not this table though, eh? She wasn't at this table, but the minister was on the program talking about that. The thing is that sometimes you all are in positions of authority and you don't recognize that. You have to pay attention to the media, because the minister will share a lot through the media when we check in with her. And I asked about those national consultations, and she told me, Natalie, we are going to be having more consultations. I asked about what is SEA, and what is the position on SEA, and she told me it was literally a 49-51% in terms of for and against. So they have to go back to the drawing board. You all have to pay attention, because there's so much, even if you don't have a direct meeting with the minister, or if you don't have, you know, a consultation with the minister, is that sometimes the information is out there, is what I'm saying.
$6 billion that is given to the ministry, I will hope that some will be given, a lot will be given to curriculum development going forward as well, to include things like what my good sir is saying here.
But I think part of the challenge will be for the minister and for the ministry is that, yes, curriculum development is really important, but we're also in a time where we realize that we need to improve the digital situation in schools, and that's going to be expensive. And you can't deny that that's going to be a big cost that the ministry is going to have to incur.
But they did speak about that in this budget, trying to get all of the schools, you know, with wireless systems. You know, so I'm hoping to see that. The thing is that these things, we have to be realistic. Even though the minister may have announced it on Monday, it's not going to happen today. And you know, the problem is, as we say, sometimes we hear things from budget to budget to budget, because it's in a stage of incompletion, you know.
All right. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we continue the conversation. We're talking tertiary education, we're talking creative sector, we're talking about the budget because it matters to you. Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show, ladies and gentlemen. Very interesting situation I just bounced up in one of today's daily newspapers. The Ministry of Social Development and Family Services has issued inside the papers today an important notice for people who have not collected their COVID-19 social support checks. So if you want to, if you applied and you haven't gotten through and you've been complaining about it, you should probably check the papers and see if your name is in there this morning.
All 8 pages.
All 8 pages.
All 8 pages.
Yeah.
You can imagine that. 8 pages of names. Pass it the rockers, because it's a small print, you know. It's a small print, so I mean that plenty of you in here who talking about, you know, and getting the money, I don't apply, I don't qualify, but just didn't go and collect your check. This is what you call, this is performance. You can't even count it, because it's doubled. 1, 2, 3. It's literal. It's 8 pages, but on each page you have 3 columns of names. Bounty killer, nah man.
His name isn't there. He's not Trinbagonian. He ought not to be collecting any COVID-19 support.
That's just my expression of surprise, darling. Just my expression of surprise. And time, this is something. Listen, I ever told you about the time when me and Toma answered in the supermarket in Jamaica, and I was looking at something and I saw the price, and I was like, me bounty killer. Here, my auntie, where is he? You say bounty killer, we talk to him. And I was like, Auntie Sonia, no bounty killer, not in the supermarket.
No, but you know that's very interesting, because we were talking about the creative sector, right? And that expression, you know, your aunt and his bounty killer in Jamaica, we don't have that same reaction to our local celebrities. No. Do you think that plays a part in why we don't get the serious attention from the government and policy?
It's a chicken and the egg kind of situation, because of course, as creative people, the creative sector, we don't necessarily have, as you know, amalgamations, associations, and that kind of thing to lobby for anything from the government. So you could say on that side, it's the fault of the people in the sector. But on the other side, the government is the unit that has the people's resources to then devote to things that are important.
So is the government supposed to listen to individuals when it comes to the creative sector, or should there be a body representing? I
think a bit of both. So there should be associations who can, you know, gather all the ideas and the input of the people in the sector, but then there also have to be mechanisms that are set up within the government and ministries, etc. to
let the Jamaican jump in again. No, because I'm telling you, I don't think people understand. Like when I look and I see what happens here, I understand why some systems don't work, you know. It's because we don't use the government as just a supporting mechanism. we expect the government to be our support, you know, and not something that we go to when we're in distress. If we're going to keep waiting on that, we're not going to reach anywhere.
Right.
It means that, to me, the sector has to develop itself, put itself in a position where it is viable, and then, you know, let's say you want to export that now. If you have a product that is I'm trying to find the word that I'm...
Where does the capital investment come from to be able to develop
No, but
the
what
sector?
I'm saying is, you can't just come to me and ask me for capital investment. You have to show me already what's working.
But Natalie, I want
It's capital investment you're talking about. You know, me as a shark, and you want me to invest in your business, is that you already have to show me, one, how your business is viable, two, is how it's going to make money, two, three, how it is sustainable, and say, okay, this is where I'm at. Plug,
All right, so
come, put in.
My question to you is, when it comes to something like culture, do we only measure it based on how much money it can bring in? Because there's several factors that culture play, and it is, you see it daily, right? You see the reaction of young people to old people. You see the reaction of how we treat the sick, how we treat the wealthy, how we treat each other is a part of our culture.
No, I understand that, but what we're talking about now is viability. We're not talking about, the thing is that the reality is that almost anything like this that you're approaching, you have to approach it like a business.
But
It literally is that you have to have a business model.
I want to counter what you're saying in some aspects, because culture is something, and the IDB talked about it in the report on the orange economy. It's not that the government has to give money and give capital and fund culture, because that has never happened in this region, right? But it's about the government creating the necessary space and the necessary enablers for it. And
how does the government do that? Let me hear you.
So the IDB recommended across the globe, not just in the Caribbean, they call it the 7 I's, information, right? Using quantitative analysis to gather information, not only on production, but on consumption.
Here we will go field day, quantitative. Move on.
The second thing are institutions. Right, it's supported institutions.
All right, feeling again to a less level, but yes, go ahead.
The third thing is
I am being realistic.
No, I agree with
we
you.
We have some institutions in place, but you're talking
not
about
operating effectively.
How effective they are.
Definitely. The third thing is industry. So bring 3 key elements together: talent, entrepreneurs who will use talent, and investors.
All right, we don't have that.
Correct. The fourth thing, which is the only thing that's ever talked about in the budget significantly, infrastructure. And whether it's activated or not is another question, right?
To some extent,
to some extent, right? The fifth thing is integration, and we talked about that. Kind of orienting our worldview away from only the North being the market for our products, and realizing that there are huge markets in the South that can also use our products, especially because we have cultural similarities. The fifth is integration. The sixth, is integration, which is not integration, inclusion. Bringing communities, actually participating meaningfully in the development of the sector. And the last thing is, it just disappeared out of my mind.
Inclusion,
but the last thing is
integration.
Yeah, the last I has to do with innovation, right? And understanding the factors that contribute to innovation. The researchers said that for a creative person to get to their peak, they need 10,000 hours of practice. Right? So you need to set up, not the government, but the government needs to enable the setting up. The same way they give tax breaks to different kinds of industries and companies, you need to enable that.
So you think that the sector needs to be incentivized?
Incentivized and taken seriously as a sector, not as a product.
I think the problem is...
I just want to challenge in terms of the tax breaks and facilitating that part of it, because to my knowledge, the Ministry, the Division of Culture has the Artist Registry, which is set up to be able to give tax breaks to people who purchase art, to people who are cultural workers. So is that not enough?
Well, before you get to that point, one of the earlier eyes in terms of industry talks about, which is kind of being done out of the universities, like UWI has an ACEM program, UTT has carnival studies, etc., is really educating, and I don't like the word educating, but creating awareness within the creative sector about the business aspect. So that many creatives have lots of talent, but they don't know how to tap into those things that are
I feel that you all have it. You all have a lot of support, but it's disjointed.
It is.
Listen, you have support for every single organization, to me, that treats with culture. whether it's the Tuco, whether it's the Pantry and Bago, whether it's the, I mean, for everything that has an organization, there's governmental support. So then it means that where there's not an organization and it's fragmented, you might not get that kind of support, but you have support in the schools, you have support in the organizations, you have support through the ministry. What is missing?
I think what is missing, and maybe my colleague here could correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
I looked at the budget, I heard and listened to it, and of course, what are the things that is supposed to advance tourism and culture and so on. I think it's really centralized in Port of Spain, because I'm from Point Fortin, and of course
now, man, you heard Tobago, you hear significant. The minister spent quite a bit on talking about Tobago.
But that's Tobago, and Tobago is good. But what about the southwest belt? We have good opportunities in southeast and the eastern side of the country that almost forgotten. We have Icacos is so rich in history and opportunities, and we can have these people who in the creative industry who can, of course, go in there and make money.
Well,
if the government, of course, if the government, of course, as he rightly said, enable the industry in these places as well, so you will have more opportunities for them to invest in. So that's why I'm saying that when you look at it, Port of Spain, you know, the not disparaging the Panyard and so on and so forth, but everything is so centralized up here. We don't get the opportunities the rest of the country for the industry to be viable.
But there are steel bands in South that the minister mentioned they're going to be making them ambassadors, etc.
Well, I heard that, but I'm talking
tourism
about
ambassadors.
No, but I understand, you know, that the physical infrastructure. I hear people complain all the time. I think I was listening to some other budget debate on one of those stations, and there was a young lady who was saying that, you know, South is so good, but she doesn't believe that enough is in South, that every time they're in South and if they want the nightlife, they come up north because it's just not there. So I think it's something that they probably can look at. And listen, the debate itself continues this Friday, so we'll get the fleshing out of a lot of things to hear, because remember that the Minister of Finance can't include everything in his presentation. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see if, you know, those things are addressed in terms of, you know, just what we can do in South. I know that the minister, who is the AG, has done some significant work in South. But, you know, but in terms of hotels and stuff, we haven't seen that, and maybe we need to really consider that so that everybody doesn't have to come this side, you know.
But we're hoping to see that the highway extension...
I think even Maracas, if you have that lovely beach there, Mayaro, is that you should have proper hotels there too. You know, because you already have the natural infrastructure.
But how much of that is the government responsible for? If you go to Mayaro, you see lots of private investors who have developed hotels and beach houses and guest houses. I wouldn't call it hotels. They have a couple of them.
Hotels?
Yes, man. You may not consider them to be 5-star. They may not be 5-star, but they are hotels. I'm
a Jamaican. I know what a hotel
you see, that's a different kind of hotel. That's what we get in Tobago.
That's what we will get in Tobago, because even when I went to the Magdalena Grand, I was like, No, and that's the thing. People don't recognize that we really have a long way to go in Trinidad and Tobago if you're going to be competitive. Because who you have to compare yourself against is a tourist destination. Jamaica is a tourist destination. My parents just in July went to a 5-star. I know what a 5-star experience is. I've been there. My family, we have vacationed in Jamaica as Jamaicans. We do it a lot.
So I have a question, right? When you go to a place, there's that tourist experience that, you know, it's been curated and it's perfect, right? But then some places you go to for the actual experience of the country. I think that is what Trinidad and Tobago has always been. You come to Trinidad and Tobago to experience what actually happens in Trinidad, not a curated version of what happens in Trinidad.
You see, this is where you're wrong. When you go to a 5-star hotel, one of the things that they do in Jamaica is that, again, there is no disjointment. It's not as if you come to this place and you can stay in if you want, but they literally will organize tours for you, not just to go to the Duns River Falls, which is still a part of Jamaica, but that if you just want to see Jamaica and go for a drive. All of that is included in your experience, you know, darling. It's just that.
That's what I'm saying. I agree. It's a curated experience.
I wouldn't call that curated if you're going outside of the hotel and seeing Jamaica for what it is, because you're going to see the vendor on the roadside. They'll take you to the place where all the people boiling crab and sit down on the pot of crab in the leg, the hot pot of crab, and they're sitting around it and stirring, and you buy a crab. That's the Jamaican experience. That's what you get as the average Jamaican who is out there. That is not a hotel experience. The hotel experience, the crab is out of the shell. You never ever see the crab. You know, so
you don't even know crab.
Exactly. So I'm just saying that, you know, that's something that we need. If you're going to be competitive, is that you have to look at a model, and you have to look at a working model. Okay. Jamaica is a working model for tourism. It is tried, proven, and it has succeeded. And that is why you'll see Jamaica has over 1 million tourists for the year, 2 million tourists for the year, regardless of the crime. It's not that we don't have problems,
yeah,
you know.
We know. We just hear it in the music, we know.
Sweetheart, hey, don't make a bust a tune for you. Don't make a bust a what name? Early Buju Banton tune for you.
Early Buju Banton, pre-jail Buju Banton. Stop yourself. Stop yourself.
All right, you see I must stop. You see I must stop. So, Kobe. No, for a minute I was about to call him Sean. I just didn't want to do it. Kobe, so we are in a new school year. Of course, we have to determine where we're going, what we're doing. I saw Yui literally last year, because of the pandemic, put out a lot of ads, made a lot of changes to their programs, you know, was literally advertising for people to come in, you know, to register, because, you know, the intake was lower than we had seen before as a result of the pandemic. We're still in a pandemic. As a guild, I know that the guild doesn't always agree with administrative decisions. Where's the guild with you at this time in terms of what it is doing and how you're responding to it?
Okay. The UWI and other tertiary level institutions is at a crossroads right now when it comes to trying to provide a quality education product utilizing the technology. We know that there are a lot of issues right now. There are a lot of issues when it comes to connectivity and the digital divide. What the Guild has been saying all the time is, of course, to remember the mental health of the student population. Because as we all know and see, many reports have been coming out that, of course, depression, anxiety, and these things have skyrocketed because, of course, you still have the same academic commitments while at home, and you don't. And of course, you used to be a time where, you know, of course, it was a getaway from all of the hustle from home, and you get to be at home, be at school, and so on. But not that it's taken away. You have no coping mechanisms, and we have been advocating like that. We have been advocating for, of course, examinations and assessments to be given a bit more leniency when it comes to the timing of exams. And of course, we also push forward as well for to invest more money in the mental health support systems in the UWI. Also,
why leniency with the time of exams? Because how about if you have that money invested in the mental health, let's say you have a mental health division at the UWI, that those children or those students who you recognize are in need of further support, that just for them. But all of you healthy ones who have no mental health problems, go and do no exam.
No. You see, what happens is that we can't see that, because when you have to do MCQ or you're doing an assessment, you know, normally you have 2 hours in the room. You don't have that no more. You have to be home. You have TNT given trouble, floor given trouble. You have the little children crying outside, the dog outside, the pig thinging outside.
But the dog was always outside and TNT always get trouble, and floor always not reliable.
But you were actually on campus where nothing was affecting you.
Right. So you're saying campus, and you know what? That's something I think a lot of people don't realize, that campus is a safe space for a lot of people, you know.
Yeah, but we don't pretend like everything on campus is properly.
Correct. Well,
no, but even so, but it's still a safe space. Like it's a space where you go to be with your friends and
to do the work.
And not only that, it's a nice green space too. Yeah. Campuses are nice green spaces which is calming for you. I remember just sitting on campus. I don't have a class and I just sit down the whole day, you know, just watching everything. Literally.
And they don't have that anymore. So you have to put those into consideration and context.
Okay.
You know, if you can't even eat, of course, Minister was here. He gave us 200 hampers to distribute to students throughout the country. And when we went there, students who were evicted. We have students who don't even know when next meal coming from, who have to work because of their parents are unemployed. So we also are affected by the pandemic, and we have to put the consideration in place when it comes to policy within UWI.
I'm happy to hear that the minister extended and thought about it, because I didn't even remember. No, honestly. So I am happy. And I think the minister is somebody who you can always reach out to, because if you still have students who are in those positions, I'm sure he'll be happy to help.
Always.
You know.
Always.
Yeah. So Rockers, let's get back a little bit to the creative sector, because I think that the conversation is unfinished, because even to now, I don't think in my mind we've solved or figured out how we're going to move forward.
Well, I think a big part of it would rely on what happens in the debate on Friday, when we hear more details of how the money is going to be spent or allocated.
And that is my problem. I don't think that is what is going to solve the problem.
It's not, because what you said, Sean, for me, those eyes that you laid out, they're very important, and you mentioned that how many of them are missing parts.
Oh, Lord, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, but that's the reality of the situation, right?
Sorry, creative sector. It was just my little opinion of how I saw it. Don't listen. Please invite me to the things that you're having. I'm not, No, oh, God, Rockers. Rockers. I was invited to home again, just for the record.
Nice.
I don't think they'll invite me back.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you all so much for joining us this morning inside the Now Morning Show. I think that we definitely have a lot to look forward to when it comes to
tell you why they're not inviting me back.
When it comes to, how these things are going to be implemented, the allocations, and we look forward to seeing how it all rolls out. Yes, I am ignoring you naturally, Lagoa.
Nothing new there.
Sean Samad, PhD candidate and lecturer of Cultural Studies at the University of
the students, not the Guild of Undergraduates.
Oh, the Guild of Students. Yes. I'm sorry. All right, so Kobe Sandy, the president of the Guild of Students.
Thank you.
Not just undergraduates. Postgraduates as well.
Yes.
But I want to remind each and every one of you that you can make a difference today now, because together we aspire and together we achieve.
Together we achieve. Oh God, they did not do it. Forged from the love of liberty.
Stop it. Stop it. Because if you do the people anthem...
With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly
you have to stand up and sing the people anthem.
Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race finds an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race finds an equal place, and may God bless our nation.